Dear ones, here we are. It is, lo and behold, it is 10:30. It comes every Sunday morning. 10:30 comes every Sunday morning. I'm sorry that we just have to mute everyone and get started, but here we are. We do value timeliness in some ways. I want to just make an announcement for folks who are coming in now that today, if you are not able to hear our music as it's being shared by our fabulous music director, Brock Chesvold, he has posted a link in the chat and will likely do so again right now so that folks can access the music via our YouTube channel. Brock has put all of his recordings up there so that you don't have to miss out on the music just in case. We are doing our very best to make our services as open and as inclusive as possible, recognizing that we are in the midst of some technically challenging times. And so we just really thank you with deep gratitude for your grace and for your patience with us as we continue adjusting and then readjusting and then readjusting, and then adjusting to the adjustments we've already made. My God, what a time period. So it is so good to see you all here this morning. I want to just invite you as we start off our time to take a deep breath, to settle in, as we enjoy our prelude from our fabulous music director, Brock Chesvold. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. And whomever you love, we welcome you. Wherever you have been in conflict this past week and in this past year, we welcome you. We welcome all of you. It is good, it is good, it is good to be together this morning. If you are here for the first time, or even the second time, or the third time, we especially welcome you. Thank you so much for being here this morning and for finding our virtual worshiping community. If you would, we have a visitors form that we will share in our chat in a moment here. Please click on it and fill it out at your own convenience. We would love to be able to welcome you beyond this worshiping space and offer you a more broad welcome. As we gather this morning, we want to invite everyone, if you haven't already, to go through and to offer a greeting this morning in the chat. Folks have already started. Please feel free to just offer a good morning, a hello, a wave, a hi, how are you, whatever. We are so glad, so glad you are here. Welcome. Welcome to worship at First Universalist Church. Dear ones, this morning our opening hymn is hymn number 34. It's one of my favorite hymns, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. So let us join hearts and voices in singing together this morning, recognizing that even as we are singing muted in our own homes, we are creating a song across the city of Rochester, the country, and our world. So let us sing together hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
Good morning, everyone. The Reverend Emily Gage wrote, "Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations points us towards something beyond inherent worth and dignity. It points us to the larger community. It gets at collective responsibility. It reminds us that treating people as human beings is not simply something we do one-on-one, but something that has systemic implications and can inform our cultural way of being. So may it always be. Come, let us worship together. As we light our chalice at First Universalist Church and in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Someone once told me that decisions are easy when values are clear. For many of us, it was our values that empowered us to choose to enter into the covenant of blessed community with each other. That decision, as a decision to give back to our loving community, speaks volumes to the generosity of our hearts. We appreciate every one of you. Please click on the link in the chat to give online to the First Universalist Church, or feel free to send a check to the church.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. As some of you know, I was away this past week in the Adirondacks. It was a quiet, restful time and mostly really unremarkable. To be honest, I really didn't do a lot. But this morning, I actually want to share a story out of my experience there. When on a fairly clear-skied Friday, I decided it was time to leave the relative safety of the spiritual care center where I was staying, and I set out on a hike up a small mountain. Now, what I can tell you is I didn't know it was a mountain at the time. And this morning, I actually have some pictures of it that I want to share with you all. I didn't know it was a mountain at the time. When I started out on my hike, this is just what it looked like. I enjoy hiking, but I'm not one who goes for the really challenging trails. I definitely looked at the map before I went, but didn't realize in the description it said that this was a 1.5-mile hike, mostly all uphill. So some of you here, I'm sure, would go for a more challenging hike, and some of you may be more careful, or maybe more of the roll or stroll through the paved path type. Either way, I am horrible at reading descriptions of trails, it turns out. And so I set out for what I thought would be an easy hike and ended up hiking 1.5 miles uphill in the snow. For the grandparents who used to have to do this on their way to school, my hat is off to you. The hike was challenging. The kind of challenging that gets your heart rate way up, where you feel it in your throat almost. I took many breaks and pauses. Along the way, I crossed many daunting bridges. This was one of them, over snowy and frozen creeks, so narrow sometimes I thought I might slip in. A few good times, I thought I might turn back. But there was something that kept me going. It was the footsteps of those who had traversed this path before. I saw the trail their boots had left in the snow. I kept looking ahead and looking back and realized that other people had done this. And other people had made this trek for the same reason I had, for a brief glimpse of the beauty of the natural world, for a quiet moment away from it all, for the sense of accomplishment once you reach the top, and all of the other reasons human beings persevere on trails and in tasks that are challenging. We desire a glimpse of that beauty. We desire a moment to get to the top and just breathe in the different air. We desire the beautiful views along the way and the restoration that can be found in the natural world. Other people had done this too, and I certainly could as well. And here is a view of the entirely frozen pond I made my way up to by the end. I'm here to report that the way down was much easier. It was not uphill both ways. But what I can tell you is that I spent a lot of time reflecting on why we do hard things, where we find the passion and the energy to keep going. From what I can tell, it is because we desire beauty. It is because we desire the beauty of belonging. It is because we desire the beauty of friendship. It is because we desire the beauty of beloved community. It is because we know that others have likely been there before and survived. And it is because we care for ourselves and others enough to put forth the effort to do hard things, so we may all see the rewards at the end. And perhaps this metaphor of climbing up the mountain has something to say about our worship topic today of covenanting in the midst of conflict, when times are hard and it feels like we want to give up. Sometimes the thing to do is to keep on going. And maybe, just maybe, there will be some beauty at the end. Not always, but maybe, just maybe, there will be some beauty at the end. Dear ones, I invite you now into this reverent time of sharing the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can take your hand and place it over your heart to listen from this heart-centered space and place. We can take a deep breath together. As I place these stones into this beautiful bowl of water, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. All are invited to share your joys and your sorrows in the chat, that we may hear from everyone gathered here and share in what is going on in the days and in the moments of your lives. This morning, I have a sorrow to share from Jane Hickok. Bill and Jane's niece, Jenny Dillon of Palm Springs, California, died suddenly and unexpectedly early this past week. She was not quite 60 years old. So we are holding Jenny and Jane and your family in our hearts today. We also have a sorrow from Shirley Malone. Shirley's husband, David, died last Sunday. A memorial is being planned over Zoom for Saturday, February 20th at 2:00 p.m. The church will be sending out more information this week, so please keep an eye out, save the date and the time, February 20th at 2 p.m. We will be gathering here in this virtual sacred space together. And Shirley, we are thinking of you and of your daughters and of all who know and loved David. We hold today a joy and a sorrow from Lisa Barr, who is happy to have left in October a seniors apartment complex full of non-mask wearing Trump supporters, her words, sobered by the idea that she is the semi-caretaker of 2 semi-ambulatory family members in a 4-story house. She is grateful to be able to work from home, grateful to get this update on your life. Our dear Lisa. We have a joy from Beth Ayers, who got her first COVID shot yesterday, now feeling more hopeful, and we are feeling more hopeful for you, Beth. Good news. Hopeful joy from John Lukes and Carol Zimberlin that Trump wasn't reelected, but a sorrow that he apparently will not be convicted by the Senate or pay any real price for his anti-democratic lawlessness. A joy from Trish Gallagher, her boyfriend, and she both got their first COVID vaccinations yesterday. Fabulous, Trish. So excited for you and for your house. A joy that both of, oh my gosh, wow, we are just receiving COVID vaccines this week. A joy from Emma that both of her parents got vaccinated too. Wow. A joy from Rachel, who has a loving and supportive partner who sends her messages wishing good luck for today's service. Awesome, fabulous. Oh my goodness. From Michael and Kelly Scott, glad that nephew Sean's COVID case is mild, and we are certainly holding Sean in our hearts and hoping for a continued speedy recovery. A sorrow from Trish Gallagher, whose dog Archie died this morning. He was 13. Oh, so hard to lose our animal companions. A joy from Julie Kleinhans to see the positive steps for climate action that the new administration is making. A joy from Steve Searles. His wife Sierra has made significant progress after her hospitalization and surgery in November and can now drive her car by herself, go up and down stairs, etc. What good news, Steve. That's been a long time. She has been on our hearts for a while, so glad that is what has happened for her. So glad she's been healing. I share a joy this morning from our sibling congregation, the First Unitarian Church, that is set this morning to install their new lead minister, and almost not so new at this point, Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan. We are holding First Unitarian in our hearts at this significant milestone and this joyous occasion in that community. Dear ones, I will also drop one final stone into the bowl for all of the joys and sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. Today, as we have been for the last, month or so, 2 months maybe, we light a white candle to acknowledge that we are a community and a congregation affected by the mixture of fear, anxiety, and difficulty that comes from living in a time of a pandemic. May this light hold all that is in our minds and our hearts, all of the grief, all of the pain, all of the sorrow, all of the hopefulness around recovery and vaccination. And may this light be a beacon of hope and a reminder that we are not alone. So dear ones, I actually want to invite you to just join me now in a moment of meditation together. I'll invite you to take a deep breath, to sit back in your chair wherever you are, to move your hands away from the keyboard, to take a moment to relax your shoulders away from your ears. Sometimes it's helpful to me to kind of roll them back a little bit, to just loosen them up a little bit and to settle in. What in our lives tells us we are not important? That human lives do not matter? That the death of so many is just something we survive? That voice that says, keep going, you do not need the rest. That leader saying your life is not sacred nor precious. We knew this was coming and chose not to prepare for it. The newscaster trying to find ways to keep track of all of the names and the many names and deaths that are not honored, not written about, nor drawn to our attention. We live in a world of disconnect. Disconnected from our bodies, our hearts, our own care. Disconnected from our loved ones who are dying, unheld by us. Disconnected by a system that says we are not worth saving. Especially those of us whose labor is too valuable to stop working or to shift to working from home. Our tradition speaks out. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of your own love. You are worthy of the love of others. You are worthy of the love of those you cannot see in person right now. You are worthy of leaders who love you and want you to live. We are worthy of love. We are worthy of our own love. We are worthy of the love of others. We are worthy of leaders who love us and want us to live. We can no longer believe the lie that our lives are not worth saving. We will no longer believe the lie that our lives are no longer worth saving or not worth saving. And the hope lies in this. Each of our lives are worthy. Each of our lives are worthy of saving. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. Dear ones, as we enter into a time of silence, let us hold in our hearts and our minds just this fact that we are worthy of saving, that each of our lives are worthy, that we are worthy of love. And let us also hold in our heart all that we are experiencing around loss right now and grief. So let us enter into this time of silence together. As we return from our silence, our shared and perfect silence, let us sing hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. For a bit of context this morning, our reading comes from an essay written in July of 2020 by Adrienne Brown. and published in a book that she put out called We Will Not Cancel Us. It is a brief volume, but worth a read. In sharing her words this morning, my hope will be that we can weave what she is saying into conversation with our Unitarian Universalist theology and heritage. So Adrienne Maree Brown writes, "We are afraid of being hurt, afraid because we have been hurt, afraid because we have caused hurt, afraid because we live in a world that wants to hurt us, whether we have hurt others or not, just based on who we are, on any otherness from some long ago determined norm. Supremacy is our ongoing pandemic. It partners with every other sickness to tear us from life or from lives worth living. So we stay put and scream into the void, moving our rage across the internet like a tornado that without discernment sucks up all in its path for destruction. Our emotions and need for control have been heightened during this pandemic. We are stuck in our houses or endangering ourselves to go out and work, terrified and angry at the loss of our plans and normalcy, terrified and angry at living under the oppressive rule of an administration that does not love us and that is racist and ignorant and violent. Grieving our unnecessary dead, many of whom are dying alone, unheld by us. We are full of justified rage, and we want to release that rage. And one really fast and easy way to do this is what I experience as knee-jerk collective punishments in movements. I am speaking of the social destruction of call-outs and/or cancellations. Call-outs have a long history as a brilliant strategy for marginalized people to stand up to those with power. Call-outs have been a way to bring collective pressure to bear on corporations, institutions, and abusers on behalf of individuals or oppressed peoples who cannot stop the injustice and get accountability on their own. There are those out of alignment with life, consent, dignity, and humanity who will only stop when a light is shined onto their inhumane behavior. But many of the call-outs burning through our movements today don't feel aligned with the lineage of this tactic. Right now, call-outs are being used not just as a necessary consequence for those wielding power to cause harm or enact abuse, but to shame and humiliate people in the wake of misunderstandings, contradictions, conflicts, and mistakes. I want to place my finger on the destructive power of punitive justice currently unleashed in our movements, and see how we bring abolition, vision, and skill to the wounds. At the core and the heart of Unitarian Universalist theology is our understanding of covenant. Simply put, a covenant contains the promises we make to one another about how we are going to be together. In the origin stories of our tradition, this covenant has its roots in the promises God made with God's people. For some in our tradition, this promise was made through Jesus Christ, God born in human form, God's holy Son. But of course, our understanding of covenant has grown to also include covenant with a higher power or higher powers of your own understanding, and especially to include the promises we make with one another, with our own human family. We make promises to one another. We are human and we break them. We promise to keep coming back to the table, even when we have broken said promises, to see what we can do to repair the harm and come back into covenant with one another. And I just want to name from the outset right now that this morning there is a harm to be repaired around particularly whether or not you can hear the music being played this morning. And I want to just commit to you that on behalf of our staff and for myself, we are committing to repair the harm. We are doing what we can, and we will certainly come together and consider this. For Unitarian Universalists, we do not have a list of common beliefs that one must profess in order to be a part of this faith. We are what they call non-creedal, meaning there is no exact creed or set of fixed beliefs one must ascribe to or sign on to or profess each Sunday. But we do have ways of being together, covenants that hold us in community and that bond us as people who gather to explore what a more spiritually grounded and values-aligned life looks like together. Each Sunday morning, we here at First Universalist Church recite our shared covenant. And if you would like to join me for a second time, you may. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Fascinating to include the ending line, with all. For those who do not know, this is not original to this shared covenant spoken in many Unitarian Universalist congregations and beyond on a Sunday morning. The with all is unique to this congregation. I was not here when this covenant was created and that line added, but it says to me that this is a promise we have chosen to make not only with one another, but with all of humanity. And it is by this statement that we measure our treatment of one another. It is by this covenant that we choose to live. And yet what happens? What happens when we cannot dwell together in peace? What happens when there are those in our families who we feel politically or spiritually betrayed by? What happens with this country when we are living in a country that has often, if not always, been divided, and the divisions are becoming increasingly more visible? Do we choose to hold those in covenant with us with whom we disagree? The with all piece of our covenant is fascinating to me because to me, we must have those we covenant with consent to abide by that covenant. But I digress. Perhaps the with all points to our intention to take these important pieces of our lives that we abide by out into all of our relationships. Can we bring this concept of covenant even into relationships with people over the internet? As this pandemic progresses, we are increasingly relying on the internet for connection and community with others. And I believe my point about this is made by all of us who are here right now, worshiping over Zoom, of course. But I also want to point out that so many are becoming more and more active over social media in this time period. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, these are all lifelines of connection for some of us. This technology has become a gathering place for many of us, though not all. A place to have conversation with one another, and especially to express our opinions. And like many ways of communicating, its use is complicated. As this pandemic progresses, our combined fear of getting sick or dying, or our loved ones getting sick or dying, coupled with the ongoing need to keep learning new things and the increase in isolation, has left many of us on edge. Have you felt it? Have you been on edge in this past week? I know I have. And maybe on edge may be a mild term at times for the ways I've felt. In the midst of all that is going on, our patience sometimes wears thin. Perhaps in recent months, you have found yourself more tired or snappy or even just a bit more reactive. Not to worry, you are not alone. None of us here has lived through a pandemic before, to my knowledge. But this state of being, this society-wide terror, the hurt that has been caused by being led by an administration that does not care about us and has not cared for us, is a ripe time for conflict. It is a ripe time for our covenants with one another and with all to be broken. It is a time when we can forget that love is our doctrine and that we are here to serve humanity in fellowship. It is hard to serve others and to think of those around us when we are working so hard to survive. In some ways, I see this as a ripe time for our sense of covenant and the promises we keep to one another to break down. Adrienne Maree Brown invites us to look at how we are having conflict with one another, especially in the context of the internet, with a focus on calling people out and canceling people. So if these terms feel unfamiliar to you, let me see if I can help. To call someone out is to name a harm someone else has caused. Often in the context Adrienne Maree Brown names oppression, abuse, and domination. To cancel someone or to engage in cancel culture is to say that someone, that because of someone's actions or words or the harm they caused, we are to ignore them or to abandon them or to leave them alone. They are no longer to be supported or to be paid attention to. At its heart, to cancel someone is to say that they are disposable. It is not to honor another person's humanity. It is to believe that people are not capable of healing. As she points out in our reading, cancel and call-out culture are on the rise and is increasingly more present in activist and movement spaces, and I think it's really important to address in our community here. I want to honor that calling out is a brilliant and important tactic when abusive harm has been caused. The best example that I can think of in recent years is the #MeToo movement, right? A way to bring to light the importance of naming sexual assault, harassment, and rape publicly, especially for people in power who have done these things over and over and over again, and whose power comes at the expense of others. This feels to me to be in the lineage that Adrienne Maree Brown is talking about, and it feels within covenant. If the quest for truth is our sacrament, then the revealing of truth is sacred to us, as well as the search for knowledge and freedom, or even the knowledge that brings further freedom. And yet there is this cancel culture piece where it feels like people's humanity is so easily dismissed. I wonder if this dynamic has been a part of your life. Has there been a time when you caused harm that you lost family or community over? Has it happened to a friend or to a loved one in your life? Where it almost becomes taboo to speak to that person or to interact because of something they said or did? Has there been a time when you canceled another person? And the harm they did to you was so bad that you cut them right out of your life. And I think that this is actually the distinction point here. The part that makes it cancellation is not only the individual action of drawing that boundary around yourself and no longer seeing that person or speaking to that person, but then also asking others not to speak to that person or not to interact with them. At times it feels like the only tool available to us. At times we have been hurt so badly, the pain is so deep, that this was what we knew to do and how we knew to be. I have not been above this at all. There have been times in my life when I was hurt so badly by another that I wanted to exact my vengeance in the only way that I knew how. I cut them out of my life, and I told all our shared friends just how bad they were, just how badly I had been hurt. My own pain became their source of social isolation. It created this dynamic where people had to choose sides. Either you were with me or you were with them. And if you were with them, it was questionable whether or not I would talk to you. My own hurt created further harm, and it created this harmful cycle and a dynamic of friends and relations walking on eggshells around me. I see this happening in many of our families. I see this happening in friend groups. I see this happening in communities. I've seen this happen in religious communities. And I want to ask, is it staying within covenant to cancel people? Is it staying within covenant to cancel one another? Adrienne Maree Brown joins with a long lineage of abolitionists to say no. No, it is not. And here I am not speaking of just those abolitionists who were opposed to enslavement or slavery, but the abolitionists of our present day, whose focus is on the carceral justice system, or as some would say, the carceral injustice system, a system that profits off of the forced labor and incarceration of millions of people throughout our country, a majority of whom are Black and brown. There is a difference between asking people to be accountable for the harm they have caused and canceling someone. There is a difference between publicly calling someone out and cutting them off and seeking to transform the harm in ways that puts the needs of those harmed at the center, that actually seeks to transform the harm and the systems that hold harm in place. There is a difference between a system that seeks to transform harm and a system that locks up so many behind bars, in cages, far away from their communities, their families, and their homes. And yes, there is a difference between asking for accountability from those close to us when they have harmed us and just cutting them off as if they too are disposable. To come back to covenant for just a second, I do not believe that our covenants ask us to stay in really active relationship with those causing us harm. In fact, I think covenants, when used appropriately, are guiding statements about what to do when harm has occurred in a community and even when conflict is present. And I do think there are instances when the answer to the harm is for someone to step away from community or from family. The main piece here is process. And the main piece here is how we use process to honor the humanity of all involved, because that is what our tradition calls us to do. How we keep trudging up that hill together, knowing that each one of us is worthy of dignity and respect, no matter the harms we have caused, no matter how we've been harmed, because each one of us in this virtual sacred space has caused harm and has been harmed. Each and every single one of us, no exception. And we are part of a tradition that tells us that even though we have caused harm and even though we have been harmed, we are loved anyway. Our values, our lives are valuable. We are loved anyway, no matter the harm you've caused and no matter the harm you've experienced. Not to say that those things don't matter, but to say with that, you are still loved. So covenant is the place we come back to when we are in conflict with one another and with all. Have we kept love as our doctrine? Have others done the same with us? Are we seeking knowledge and truth? Are we seeking ways to punish? A covenant that cannot guide us through the moments when we are in conflict, when we have been harmed or when we have caused harm, is an empty document. Just words we say, rather than the agreements we live by. And if covenants are so central to Unitarian Universalist theology and identity, we must pay close attention to them. We must be in alignment with them. We must develop the self-awareness to know when we have broken our promises and to seek to repair the harm. And that is what we need church for. We need a community like this to learn how to own our fears and our hurts together, rather than in isolation. This is where we come to learn trust, to be truthful with one another, to recognize when we ourselves have caused harm and to own that harm and to apologize. As you go forward into this week, may the covenant we make with one another be strong enough to carry you through all your interactions and relationships. May we remember that we will not cancel us. May these promises help you to see where you fear and hurt, and out of that fear and hurt, where you might seek to call out or to cancel another. Let these words be a guide to us. Let our tradition be a guide to us in moments of conflict and in times when we can feel the conflict brewing, bubbling right under the surface. Let us always return to this statement. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. And as we come to a time to close our service, our closing hymn is hymn number 1023, Building Bridges, a beautiful protest song coming out of justice movements, and one about navigating conflict together. So we invite you to remain muted and sing out joyfully from home, again, creating a collective song from wherever we find ourselves.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
As we extinguish our chalice here at First Universalist Church and in your own homes, let us say together the words printed on your screen or in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. Dear ones, I'll invite you now to put your view to gallery view, if you can, wherever you are, to connect in this moment, to reach out to the edge of your screen. If you are calling in, to just place a hand over your heart and to think of someone in this community or in your life that you love. Let us be connected now, friends. Let us be connected here. As we go forward from this place together, may our covenant guide us. May our sense of covenant guide us in the days and the weeks and the months ahead, because friends, we are in this for a little while longer together. Dear ones, let us go forth today and commit that we will not cancel us, that we will continue to be in right relationship with each other, that we will continue to come back to the table and to be in conversation when we have caused harm or when we have been harmed. Friends, go forth this week knowing you are loved and bringing that love wherever you may go. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. And will you please follow our benediction with the line, "We will not cancel us," as we join in listening to a beautiful postlude from our fabulous music director, Brock Teswold.